welcome back to the Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
Oh, I'm pretty good, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. All the better for going through this wonderful, wonderful film.
Yeah.
Pleasure to rewatch as always. Today we are covering The Blood on Satan's Claw from 1971.
Yeah.
When did you first see The Blood on Satan's Claw?
I think it was probably a late night showing on TV.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah.
See, I'm not. See, I always say that. I'm always like, hey, it was a VHS or it was a late night movie on TV. This time, no. I saw this late on. This was a DVD, I think, the first time I saw this.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, really late on. I don't know why. Sometimes these things just pass you by.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to say like mid 2000s, like 2005 ish, somewhere around there, probably. But instantly fell in love with it as soon as I saw it. So
yeah,
you know,
I think the thing is I mean, people think of it as a Hammer movie. It's not
I can see why it's very Hammer-ish.
It's Tygon films, and I think no one really remembers Tygon films unless you're like a proper movie buff and you know your horror and stuff. Tygon Films are one of those companies that you just think, who the hell are they? I mean, they did, Witchfinder General and a few sort of really good movies.
I must admit, halfway through this, like whenever I watch this movie, I'm always like, do you know what? If Hopkins was here, none of this shit would have gone down. He would have killed half the village by now.
Yeah. I mean, this was kind of the sequel in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's set much later, but it's
he's much more the Hopkins like character, although he's not a witch hunter in this.
The judge,
the judge is much more of a he's not that likable, but he's way more likable than Hopkins because Hopkins is an absolute piece of shit. So
I mean, the judge is just a really snobby bastard. Yeah, I think that's his worst sort of thing.
The way they treat the fiance is like gross at the start, and it's hard to like him after that. But he does become more likable as the film progresses. But let's get into it. So we opened with Ralph, who's plowing his field, and he notices some crows at the other end of where he's already ploughed, and we get that really awesome kind of tense music come in.
Yeah, the music in this is great.
The score is fantastic.
Yeah, it's by Mark Wilkinson. The when he uncovers the face.
Yes,
the score there it's really Doctor Who. It's really 70s Doctor Who. It's got those real like tones and things that make it eerie.
So
the song, the tune that sort of plays through the movie, it's got that wonderful I think it's a flute that sort of it's got that little trill sort of thing that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I'm not sure what instrument that is, but it sounds awesome. So he finds basically some remains. It's an eye and some fur, and like kind of part of a face.
Yeah.
And I guess the idea is that it's someone buried or something that's buried in the mud, where he's ploughed. And this, I always thought this effect looks really good. Like the eye and stuff looks really real to me. Like whenever I see it, I'm like, that looks really good.
The eye looks good. The face itself isn't great.
No, not so much. I guess the eye draws you, so it's kind of but yeah, so obviously he's pretty panicked about this.
Yeah.
And he heads back.
We also get in just before he uncovers the face, we get the sort of the beginning of the setup with him and is it Kate? It was Kathy.
Kathy, yeah.
She waves at him and you get that the sort of the little thing that starts between them. And that will, goes through the movie, which is really great and really sweet.
Yeah, definitely. So he heads back and he speaks to the judge, who is played by Patrick Wilmark, and he is fucking great in
He is fantastic, and that voice of his.
I know. He's just got one of those voices.
He's in some amazing stuff as well. I mean, he's in Where Eagles Dare, and
yeah. He's another one who just great in everything he's in.
He was Cromwell in Witchfinder General as well.
Yes, yeah. And I love he comes in, and obviously being a peasant, they all speak with a West Country accent.
Yeah,
and he's relaying this story. And I love that Isabel, the wife, is like, oh, this story is really upsetting me. I wish you wouldn't tell it. And he's like, I'm telling there's a fucking dead body out there. Like, she's like, oh, please don't tell this story. It's really upsetting me.
She's not his wife. He's visiting her.
Oh, is he visiting her?
Yeah, she's like the young chap that turns up. Oh, what's his name?
I thought she was the judge's wife. That's weird.
No.
Okay, never mind.
She's
kind of inconsequential anyway.
It's actually a weird relationship, because she's Peter's mother when Peter turns up.
Yes,
your bride, and he's visiting for some. And there's one part where
because he does bugger off again.
He's talking to Peter at one point, and he says at one point, when he's talking about him and the girl he's brought home.
Yeah,
he says, at one stage I wooed your aunt.
Right.
So he's just like visiting.
I guess he is he's a prominent member of society. He's quite wealthy and well-to-do, so I guess they're happy to put him up wherever he goes.
I'm guessing he's judged for the area.
Yes, that's like the assumption.
Over a county maybe or whatever.
Yeah. So the judge is like, what are you talking about? You're out of your mind. And Ralph is like, no, it is literally, he's like, I wouldn't lie to you, Governor. He's like, it's in the field. He's like, let's go see it. And of course, he's like, I'm not even going to give this the time of day. I'm not even going to
dignify it. And I love the way he says fiend.
Yeah. But Isabel says, look, please, for my own sanity, could you go check? Because, like, I think she's like, this is really disturbing me. Could you please go and make sure that it is just that Ralph's mental and not that there's some half-beast thing buried out there? So then I think we cut to Peter bringing home his lady friend, Rosalind, and I love the scene when you've got Isabel there, and I think it's like the just like the servant or helper at the house.
Yeah,
she's like, oh, Peter's coming, and she's got a lady with him, and Isabel's like, oh, woman, good lord, like, show me. Immediately she's like, they do say in a minute, they're like, she's fucking pregnant.
Yeah,
it's the immediate assumption.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, she's clearly a slut. Yeah.
I mean, she literally disdains this girl from the moment she shows up.
Yeah. When she says the name, doesn't she? Well, I can't remember what her name is now, but she says her name, and the aunt says, a farmer's daughter.
Yeah. So obviously she's introduced to Isabel, and she's lovely. She's being really nice and saying she's really pleased to be there, and she's happy to meet them, and Isabel is just written all over her face. Isabel just despises this girl immediately, looks down on her, and she's like, because they announced their intention to be married. Peter says, like, this is my wife to be, and Isabel just ignores him and looks at her and goes like, so you intend to marry Peter? It's not like you're going to marry. It's like, oh, so you intend to marry Peter?
And it's like tomorrow as well. It's like we're to be married tomorrow.
I mean, to be fair, I can understand why Isabel's a bit upset.
Yeah,
having not found out until right now. But the way she treats Rosalind is pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
But yes, so Isabel makes it very clear that she does not approve, as you said, farmer's daughter, and basically tells Ellen to get back to work. Yeah.
And that's Rosalind. She's played by Tamara Ustinov, who is the daughter of the amazing, great Peter Ustinov, who is one of my absolute heroes. I love Peter Ustinov.
Yeah.
So if anybody just go look up Peter Ustinov. He was fucking amazing. Just watch some of his audiences with his stories are amazing.
Yeah. So meanwhile, there's nothing in the field. The judge goes out there, and there's some bones, but they're like clearly animal bones. And the fur in the eyeball isn't there. The face isn't there. And the judge is like, I'm going to assume that you're like joking.
Yeah.
I guess at this point he's like got the choice, hasn't he? The judge is either, because we will learn soon that witchcraft, thing of the past, we've moved on, we're past that now. We're modern people.
We're modern people. We don't, such things of should be left in the past.
Yeah. So to his mind, I think the judge is kind of saying to Ralph, look, either I believe that you're joking, or I believe that you've lost your mind and probably need to be taken away.
Yeah.
And I'm going to assume you're joking and wasting my time. But Ralph sees the Reverend. And the Reverend is out catching snakes.
Yeah.
I don't know why. And they ask him.
I think it's the setup that he loves nature, because he's always
he does
be like feeding rabbits or something.
He's got his little pet rabbit,
yeah,
who I'm most concerned about.
Who is really tied down? Looks really like that rabbit doesn't look right.
He's not happy. When you put food in front of a rabbit and it refuses to eat, I don't think it's happy. So they ask the Reverend if they've seen any strange person in the area, because he kind of relays this story. And the Reverend tells the judge, he's like, well, there's been a lot of weird people around lately, since there was a recent death in the village.
Yeah, he says, I wrote it down. Meg Parsons. After he says Meg Parsons, after Meg Parsons' death, we've had lots of like weird folk passing through.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing by that Meg Parsons was probably the village weird woman.
Yeah, I guess so.
The village hag.
And probably the source of all of this, I guess. That's where it kind of started kicking off. So we then cut to the evening, and the judge is playing. I think
have we missed the bit with Angel and the other two children? Because there's a bit where they're walking along the field, isn't there, talking? Is that before or after?
I couldn't honestly tell you at this point. It was a few days ago that I watched this, so in terms of the exact moment that I know that happens, but I don't know. Possibly.
I think it's Angel and it's definitely Mark.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think they come across something, don't they? So there's that, and then I think we then go back to the judge and the what is his bloody name? Peter. And they're talking. I think they're having lunch, aren't they?
No, they're playing the card game, aren't they?
That's right. That's right. Yes, they're playing cards.
Rosalind, they're basically playing cards, and they're all better than Rosalind, and everyone's really insulting to her. And then she's really upset and wants to leave. And then the judge is like, "What? What's wrong? Like, why are you upset? Don't be like that." Yeah. And she's like, "You're literally just being horrible to her the whole time."
The aunt says, hopefully she'll be a better wife than card player. And you're like, ow!
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Just stab her and get over with, for fuck's sake.
So, yeah, absolutely. And she goes to get up, and the judge is like, yeah, maybe you should go home.
Yeah.
He's like, well, you won't be staying here with your intended, surely.
Yes, exactly. He says, something there. What? If you were intended? Absolutely not, sort of thing.
Yeah. And she sort of like, says, oh, don't want to be too much trouble. But Peter's like, well, she can sleep in my room. And Isabel's like, will she fuck? Yeah. And she's like, hey, we've got that creepy old attic that hasn't been occupied for years.
Yeah. This is the start of how much of a pussy Peter is, because you just think, if Peter was had any balls, he'd say, "Well, she can sleep in my room,
and I'll sleep in the attic." I know. I thought that. I was like, you could be the gentleman and let her sleep in your room, and you could take the attic, Peter.
Yeah.
But no. He's like, no, you go up in the attic then, fine.
Yeah, you go in the amazingly creepy attic.
So he does protest a little. He's like, hey, that hasn't been used for years. It's awful up there. But of course, Isabel's just like, well, Ellen will clean it. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And then, of course, then Rosalind's showed to her room. And Peter promises to come to her in the night while everyone else is asleep.
Yeah, they'll be asleep by 11 o'clock. And then it cuts to them in the parlor, living room, whatever you want to call it.
This is where the judge says about fancying Isabel, right? To Ralph.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the scene you were talking about earlier.
He's talking. They're drinking, and he's looking at the clock, and it's like gone. It's like 11 or something.
Yes, and he makes the toast to the exiled king.
He makes a toast to the exiled James the Third, which is like, whoop, hello, fucking Mr. Jacobite here. Jesus Christ, someone's not too careful about who he's fucking making his toast. Well, I suppose he's making a toast in front of his nephew, or his friend.
And he's a judge. He's quite powerful. I'm guessing he could just deny anything anyway. If anything,
Yeah. Which I guess that sort of I don't think it actually tells you what year this is, does it?
I don't believe so.
But by the James the Third thing, that's going to be late 1600s to early 1700s, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're either talking Queen Anne or George the First.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think I'm guessing I want to put it in late 1600s and Queen Anne.
That works.
Probably where I would put it.
It's as good as anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, so meanwhile, up in the attic, Rosalind is admiring some flowers, like a small little bouquet.
Yeah.
In bed, but then she hears door creaking, and some wind, and she goes to investigate, probably thinking that it's Peter.
Yeah.
But she finds nothing.
She goes to the door, doesn't she? And she calls Peter's name, but he's not there.
Yeah. So she then goes back to the bed, but she sees something, and we don't get to see what it is.
No.
Which I think is bloody good, considering when we actually see what the thing is later on. This is the best way to go. Yeah. I almost feel like, I can't remember if we said this on air or not, about the monster looking really ropey. I guess we'll get to it. But I think this film would be far better if we never saw it.
Just or maybe just a shadow, or
just a shadow or something. Yeah.
I think sometimes when you see the claw, it's quite effective.
The claw is great, and we'll get to the claw in a bit, because there's a great scene with the claw soon. So she doesn't see anything, but she starts. Well, sorry, she does see something, but we don't see anything. She starts screaming. Peter is then sneaking up, so he's late.
Yeah, he was on his way up.
Yeah, and he hears the screams, but for some reason he tries opening the door and he can't. So the door is just like sealed shut. Yeah. He calls for help, and of course the judge comes up and immediately just opens the door. And it's like, huh.
There's a sort of a weird thing here as well, because they can't open the door, and he sort of like starts stomping around trying to sort of get in. Then he sort of buggers off.
Yeah.
And he's like running down the stairs, and the judges and the aunt are sort of stood there, and she screams again, and he comes back, and then that's when the judge and open the door, and you just think, where was he running? What was he doing? What was he doing?
Yeah. I don't know. So the judge opens the door.
Peter goes to go in, and she just screams, and
he pulls her back, doesn't he? He pulls her back, and he's like, "Don't go in there."
Your presence is
disturbing her.
Yeah.
So then Isabel goes in, and at this point, I mean, obviously we know the story, right? But when I first watched this film, I was like, she fucking, like, I don't blame her, right? So Isabel goes in, and we see Isabel's, like, slapping her around the face, like, snap out of it. And then the next thing we see is Isabel comes out, she's like, she scratched me, and I'm like, I don't blame her. You were whacking her across the face.
You still go, good?
Yeah, like, at this stage, I'm like,
nothing
cool.
but fucking horrible to her. Fucking good for her.
But of course the judge is like, "Whoa, she's crazy." You know, I think he summons Ellen, doesn't he, to go and get Ralph?
Yeah,
and the doctor.
And the doctor, yeah.
Then he
and also some wood and some fucking nails.
Yeah, he's like, let's nail the fucking door up with her inside. Peter does try and protest, but he's like, there's nothing more that could be done for her. I'm like, whoa. She's just screaming and upset. Like, we haven't... And she defended herself. I mean, that's where we are at the moment. But
exactly.
But yes, so... The following morning, we then get some men come to take her to the asylum, and I think this is where we see the claw on her, because she comes out and she's smiling and peaceful all of a sudden.
Yeah, she gives is it Peter?
Yeah, Peter.
Gives that really creepy look with a really sort of like odd smile. And you know, I never thought about it when I was watching the movie before, but when she comes out of the room, because she's like tied, I think she's tied.
Yeah, she's tied. Yeah.
The two guys sort of bring her out of the room, and she sort of wobbly comes out of the room with that sort of grin on her face.
Yeah.
That reminded me of Field in England, when Reece Shearsmith's character comes out of that tent. Being, you know, when he's bound by the sorcerer, I can't remember what the actor's name is. Who doesn't know? But he comes out of the tent, and he's got that weird, creepy face and the wob sort of thing. Oh, that's where they got that from.
I think maybe it was, yeah. So I really like this scene because we see the claw under her, like. We see kind of the claw on the banister as she's being taken out. Under
the sort of sleeve of her.
But at this stage, it's kind of unclear whether anyone else sees that or whether it's just Peter that can see that, and whether she's just got a normal hand, but Peter's kind of seeing it. Because no one else addresses it. It's just Peter that sees it and is like shocked by it. And then of course the judge is like proper smug, and he's like, well, she would have never made a proper wife for you. Count yourself lucky, buddy.
Exactly. It's like, it's literally like him hitting him in the ribs and going, yep, dodged a fucking bullet there, dude.
He's like, yeah.
Christ.
But
poor fucking woman, she's off to spend the rest of her fucking life in Bedlam.
Yes, in the 1600s.
Yeah, that'd be nice for her.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Isabel is being tended to by Ellen. She's now got a high fever due to the scratches. And I love this guy. The doctor comes in,
brilliant,
and he's like looking at her, and she wakes up all worried, and he's like, "Don't worry, you've just got something wrong with you. I don't know what it is, but don't worry about it." It's like, wow, thanks, doctor.
And I like that he's the servant gives him a glass, which I think she presumes he's going to give it to her.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, I'll just have a drink." Yeah.
And also, he mentioned, he says, you know, about her fever and stuff, and he says, oh, I think there's a lot of it going round, and you think, okay, really? That doesn't tell you anything? That you know, that there's something weird going on round here?
Yeah. So obviously, as we said, she's taken away to presumably the asylum. I think they do say it's the asylum that she's.
It's Bedlam.
Bedlam, yeah.
Bedlam, yeah.
Same thing. So we then see Ellen kind of looking on as Rosalind's removed, and she says, like, you know, there's no telling what will become of her after being in there, because she's like, well, this poor girl, you know. Ellen's like, hey, you know. She's, you know, she might have scratched her face and stuff, and she might be a bit crazy, but where she's going, hideous. And the judge is also watching, and notices that the birdcage is empty. He seems to draw attention to that. So Ellen calls the judge and says that Isabel's disappeared, and he heads upstairs to try and investigate. And the next day, we're kind of introduced properly to the kids, as Fallowfield is teaching from the Bible. He comes in, and he's like, well, like, where are half of my class? I think he asks for. Who does he ask for? I forget who he.
No, I think that they're all there at this point.
Are they all there at this point, and then they're missing later?
The first time they turn up, they're all there.
Oh, that's right, because he asks why Boaz was generous towards Ruth, and then Mark says because he was a man and she was a woman.
Yeah.
And then oh yes, of course, because then a girl opens up her pouch and screams.
Yeah,
and it's that furry claw that Angel found earlier in the field.
Yeah, and she's showing it to all the other kids, isn't she?
That's right.
And one of the girls, of course, screams and drops.
Yeah.
The bag.
Yeah. And then of course he tries looking at it, but then there's nothing in the bag when he gets it. It's just empty.
Well, I think he does look at he picks up the claw. And
does he pick up the claw?
I think he looks at it, but then he drops it.
Oh yeah, and then it's gone. Right?
And then then the bag gets passed around, and of course he's like, give it to me, and they're passing it amongst themselves, sort of behind their backs. And eventually, when he gets it off of one of the boys, he opens the bag and tips the contents into his hand, and it's just like there's some bones and a top, but there's no claw. They obviously sort of pocketed that somewhere along the line.
Yeah. And then I think we cut to the search party returning, basically saying we can't find her.
Yeah.
No idea where she's gone.
And also it's like starts raining, doesn't it? So it's just beginning to piss down.
But the judge is like, go again.
Get the fuck back out there.
Look again.
And the grumbling as they're walking off, and one of them goes, bloody old fool, why don't he bloody go himself?
But yeah, so Squire tells the judge that searchers have lost the scent, but that Isabel, she's got a strong constitution. She'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, it's pouring with rain now. She already had a fever before she left. She's presumably left delirious, and now she's out in a storm, wearing presumably just a nightgown.
Exactly.
She's not well.
Probably gonna die of exposure, if nothing else.
Yeah, exactly, right? Obviously, Peter is devastated. He's gone from getting married the next day to having lost his fiance. She's now in an asylum.
Yeah. And that his aunt's gone missing.
Yes, and Peter actually remarks to the judge. He's like, "Evil's entered the house." He's
also, we should say the Squire Middleton is sort of introduced here as well. The guy that says about her constitution and that, and he's obviously the village official, and he's quite pompous, that all the people love me type thing. But because the judge is that much more over him, he's sort of like completely sort of subservient to the judge, and I love how fucking disdainful he is of the judges of Middleton. He just looks down on him on every occasion he possibly can, because he keeps asking him to sup with him, doesn't he? And he's like, "Oh, I can't, sort of right now."
Yeah. So he like Peter's like, hey, like evil has entered this house, and I think again we get the judge basically saying like, you've got to forget such fancies, and there's no such thing as like, they're like, we're modern people, like cleanse your mind of this nonsense, and he tells Peter like, it's time to go to bed. Let's go to bed and just deal with it in the morning. But Peter decides to stay downstairs, and then eventually, when he does go to bed, he goes to the attic.
Yeah.
And he goes in and he sits on the bed and he starts smelling the flowers, doesn't he? That were there.
I think there's a load of gear on the on one of the sort of beams. And it was his uncle's, wasn't it?
That's right. Oh, yes. Sorry, we missed that, didn't we? Because when he takes her up there, he tells her initially when they go up there that it was his uncle's and that he died years ago. Yeah.
Which I'm presuming maybe the Civil War, but I don't know.
Possibly, yeah.
So we established that there's this gentleman's gear hanging next to the bed.
Yes. And then the light goes out and he starts hearing noises from under the floor.
Yeah.
Something is like rising from the floorboards.
Yeah, one of the boards is keeps moving up.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny.
It is, because he's an idiot.
He's just I know this scene is like, you are an absolute moron.
Yeah, he basically jumps on the floorboard, pushes it down at first, and then he starts trying to pull it up.
Yeah, right. And then he's grabbed, right?
Well, he pulls the thing. He pulls up the floorboard, and he looks down, so you can't see it. And then he puts his fucking arm in it.
But then it gets worse, because the claw grabs him.
Yeah.
Right. And then he pulls away. And to deal with this, so he's just been grabbed by something that he saw was coming up from the floorboards. His resolution to this problem is, I'll just put an old chest over it and go to sleep.
Yeah.
What?
In the same fucking...
In the room? No, just in the room. Just fine. I'll just put this chest over it. Problem solved. I'll go to sleep now.
Like, getting out of that.
That's like, problem solved.
Yeah. It's not coming out from that floorboard because I'm putting chest up.
It couldn't possibly move to another part of the room and try a different floorboard. That's the only way it's getting in, and it's not getting in. So yes, then later,
I guess you could say that the exhaustion and the evil makes him go to sleep.
I think it's all kind of fevery, dreamish, weirdness going on from that point on.
It does just look like he's an idiot.
It does look like he's an idiot, but of course, I think it's kind of solved by this next scene.
Yes.
Because later we see the claw is creeping up and grabbing him, trying to strangle him.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter struggles, and he manages to grab a knife, which I think is his uncle's knife from his uncle's clothes. It's
hanging from the gear on the beam.
And he starts basically stabbing at the claw to try and stop it from choking him.
Yeah.
And the judge basically bursts in and sees that he's basically cut his own hand off.
Yeah.
And he's like, obviously sends Ellen for some bandages.
So the thing with this bit is, it kind of suggests that the hand was his, right? The claw was his.
Yes, which also then makes you think that the claw he saw on Rosalind was also just a figment of his imagination.
Yes. However, we do know later that certain things do change and do exist. So the question is, was he imagining that the claw, his hand was the claw, or was his hand literally the claw, but when he cut it off, it reverted back?
That's entirely possible. Yeah. We don't know at this stage.
No, but we do see his hand in the blankets, and it is basically a normal hand.
Yes. Oh yeah. It's definitely normal once cut off.
Yeah,
absolutely. So the judge is obviously with the doctor later, and I love this scene, right? Because at this point in the movie, you've pretty much written off the judge, or I had when I first watched this. I was like, oh, the judge is going to be that character who doesn't believe anything because he believes in modern ways and not witchcraft. And he says as such to the doctor, because the doctor's like, hey, look, this is it's like a book of demons and devils. And he's like, isn't this what Ralph described in the field? And this kind of fits with everything. And this is normally where your standard character with the judge being a standard character would have just been like, oh, this is nonsense, I don't need this. But he looks at it, and instead of doing that, he's like, actually, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this does line up. Can I borrow this book to study it further? And I always liked that, because it's so it's just not typical of that kind of character in a film. No. It's very rare that you get the doubting person actually go, oh, actually, maybe I'm wrong.
Even consider it.
Yes, exactly. It kind of gives him an extra dimension. Obviously, he goes on this whole arc, most of it off screen, which is kind of irritating. I always wanted to see more of it, but fine.
I would have liked to have seen a few
shots of him reading and looking into it.
Studying or asking a few people about such things. You know what I mean? Yeah. That would have been kind of nice, but I guess budget probably didn't stretch to that.
So the judge is leaving, but Ralph kind of begs him. He's like, "Oh, we really need your help." And he promises to return when the time is right.
But he also, which is a really weird thing, is he says we must let the evil grow.
Yeah.
Before we can cut,
we must let the evil grow, but not while I'm here.
Why the fuck? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I'm gonna be in the next fucking village.
Yeah, but not when I'm here.
I'm from this. I'm gonna be back in the city. You just sit tight and you hold on. You'll be fine.
Yeah. And of course he's gonna get his wish because he's left this fucking incompetent squire to deal with it, and he even tells the squire, he's like, just let it grow.
And it's a really great shot as well of this collected household. You know,
there are some wonderful shots in this film,
and you get that they're all sort of at the gate. You know, watching him leave in his carriage, and you get that there's a great shot of him leaving in the carriage. It's like down this sort of country road, and it turns back to them just looking crestfallen as they're watching their hope fuck off down the road.
Yeah. It's weird as well because the judge tells the squire before he leaves, he's like, you know, like you said, the evil must grow before it can be destroyed, and it's like, dude. You didn't believe in any of this until like 5 seconds ago. You just picked up the book, and now you're like, "Oh, I know what to do." It's like, no, you don't. You haven't got a clue.
Well, I think that's the thing is he doesn't know what to do. That's why he's going.
Yes, but to say, "Oh, the evil must grow before it can," it's like you're telling a lie here, mate. You don't know
exactly.
That. But yes, and then we cut to I think we cut to Mark and Kathy, his sister, are coming back from the woods, and Mark. It's like, I'm in pain.
Yeah, he's got like a twitch, isn't he?
He's got a twitch, yeah. And she starts saying the Lord's Prayer to keep him kind of going as they head back.
Of course, we should say that Wendy, Kathy, played by the great Wendy Padbury.
Yes, and this cast is superb, by the way.
Oh, it's brilliant cast.
Just really, really good. Ellen says when they get home that she'll get the doctor for Mark. But Mark's like, oh, the pain's gone. And she's like, it's not going to be gone forever, though. You've obviously got something wrong with you. I'll go get the doctor.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, eat an apple and I'll be back. And Mark starts playing with some bones, and I thought that was going to go somewhere, but it kind of doesn't. Yeah. I thought he was going to throw them and they'd fall in some weird way or something would happen. But he starts...
My guess is that it's kind of there to suggest that they've all started doing
weird things.
You know, I think the suggestion is that the kids have started playing with bones and
they're messing with things they shouldn't.
Yeah.
He gets up to grab an apple and suddenly the pain is back. But he sits down in kind of a weird, almost trance-y kind of, almost like a trance, and he starts eating the apple as we see the two girls staring at him through the window, and they are creepy as they stare through the window. And they're like, hey, we're gonna go play some games, do you want to join us? And he's like, I don't play girl games.
No, you're gonna play girls games, I don't care.
But then of course they say, well, Angel wants to see you.
The magic words, because I think we haven't mentioned, but he keeps mentioning that he likes Angel, doesn't he?
So Angel wants to see him, and they've taught new games. They've been taught new games by Angel, which sounds ominous as all hell, but so of course he hears Angel, and that's all he's interested in. So he's like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, exactly. Any normal kid would go, yeah, I don't think so.
No, I'm good, buddy. But no, he is all over that. So the next day, and this is the scene I was thinking of earlier, the school, lots of people are absent, and Fallowfield's like, where is Mark? And of course they're like, well, he's gone home sick, he wasn't feeling well. But then he asks where Angel Blake is, and this little shit, this red-haired boy,
that redhead kid, he's got such a punchable face.
It's so awful, He's like, she sends her regards and apologies, but she had something fearfully important to do. And of course, obviously, like, Fallowfield is like red with rage. And he's like, you've all fallen to ungodliness. You know, he's like, I hate this kind of insolent behavior I'm starting to see in the children, and he's very angry about it.
Yeah.
So then I think we cut to the Coven with Mark, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're playing Blind Man's Buff with
and again, you get that. So they put a blindfold on him, and they start playing Blind Man's Buff in the ruined church.
Yeah.
And there's again an amazing, a wonderful shot of Mark with the blindfold on, stumbling around, and the children running around him, and he passes like a corridor, and you can see at the end of this sort of like corridor, Angel just stood there watching, and you can see that between her hands she has like a cord or some sort of belt or thing, and she's just stood there like, you know. Oh, well, I would literally say evilly watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course they're all running around and giggling until eventually he stops. Like, he's realized something or noticed something. He kind of stops, and then of course we see the cord grab him around the neck,
go around his neck, and that's it. That's him done for, poor bastard.
That is the end of Mark. Ellen heads back from the woods. She's got a bottle of medicine. She's shocked by this man, isn't she? This man is smiling at her, and she drops the bottle actually in shock.
No, she doesn't. She's walking along and she's looking at the bottle, and it shatters in her hand.
You're right. Sorry, no, it does.
It
does.
Yeah, the kid throws a stone or something and breaks the bottle.
Yeah.
And she says, "Who is that? Who is that?" And he gets up out of the bushes.
Yeah, and she's like, "That was really rude. Like, we needed this medicine for Mark." And he's like, "Well, Mark's not going to need it."
Yeah,
don't worry about that.
Yeah. And she says, "What do you mean?" And he basically says, "Oh, we put him in the woodshed."
Yeah. So of course she goes back to the woodshed and finds the bleeding corpse of Mark, just kind of badly chucked underneath a wood pile.
They literally buried him under a wood pile,
but not very well.
No,
you can clearly see him there. So Fallowfield is in his chambers with his rabbit. As you said, they make a point of him being at one with nature.
Yeah.
And Angel turns up, and he tells her he wants to talk to her. Basically, he's like he wants to talk to her and her father about her insolent behavior. And Angel immediately strips and is like, "Hey, do you like what you see?" And you can see that Fallowfield obviously is like really uncomfortable, and he's like, "Please cover yourself up."
Mm-hmm.
And you know, she gets closer. Basically, you know, she can tell he's uncomfortable and just moves closer to him.
Yeah.
And says, you know, "Would you like to come and play our games? You know, come and play with us." And he basically curses her and says, like, "I don't ever want to see you."
Yeah, I never want to see you in this church again.
And she says, you know, she's like furious at this point. She kind of turns to rage, and she says, you know, if he wants to see what will become of his pupils, you know, he's going to soon find out. And it basically says that Mark's already done for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it's like a hard cut to the funeral. We're at the grave service for Mark. And we see Angel and her father turn up late. So the ceremony's happening. Fallowfield is you know, giving the ceremony, delivering the speech as they turn up. He is distracted because he sees her, and she's like got those piercing eyes as she just stares at him.
The close-ups of her face is so expressive.
It really is. It really is. And it's a really effective scene, and he's really good as well. I think Fallowfield, the actor playing Fallowfield, is fantastic. It kind of
it's Anthony Ainley, isn't it? Anthony Ainley.
Yes. Yeah.
The master.
Yeah. So obviously the corpse has been wrapped, because presumably a right state, and is lowered into the grave. And suddenly, Kathy feels a pain, and she turns and finds Angel staring straight at her. And I think Kathy immediately knows she's in trouble at this point. So everyone's leaving, and Fallowfield rushes up to the Squire, saying that he wants to speak to him. But then Angel and her father appear immediately, and Fallowfield's like, I'll talk to you later in private. And the Squire's like, okay, fair enough, Reverend, you're a good man. And then, as Fallowfield heads off to the church, Angel and her father tell the Squire that Fallowfield demanded that Angel strip and submit to him, or that she would end up like Mark. Now, what I do like about this scene is that Angel's got her father with her to kind of back this up, and he's like, hey, she came home, she was in a complete state. And so he, the Squire's like, well, that's enough evidence for me. Guilty man.
Well, he says she was bloodied and torn, so
yeah. That's the thing, and that's the I like a lot about this film, is that a lot of it is reasonably logical. Like, you can see why people would make that conclusion, because it's not just Angel coming up and saying this. It's not some child coming up and saying this. It's her father as well, and he's like, I was witness to this. So the Squire's like, okay, then Fallowfield is guilty, and he's going to put an end to it. Then I think we cut to Kathy again, feeling pain as she's walking through the woods. I guess she's going home. They're going home from the funeral, aren't they? She feels the pain again.
And we get this lovely scene as well so they're walking home, and it's Ralph and Kathy's mother, and Ralph turns and says, he says he calls her his love, and he kisses her on the head, and he sort of waves farewell, and it's really sweet, and it literally sets up Kathy as the sweetest girl in the entire village.
She's adorable. She really is. She's absolutely adorable.
She says to her mother, he doesn't just say that to anybody. You hear what he called, you hear what he said.
So of course he heads off in the other direction, and she joins Ellen. So later, that redheaded shit and some other guy, both being creepy as all hell, approach Kathy. One of them's got I think it's is it a whip, or is it just a stick? I'm not quite sure.
I think it's a stick.
He's using it like a whip. He's kind of cracking.
It's a very thin stick that he's literally using it as a what do they call it? A birch.
And she asks they ask what she's up to, and she says she's collecting flowers.
To put on Mark's grave.
And they immediately are like, oh, we're really upset about Mark too.
The redhead says, I know where there are some flowers with really long stems.
This all sounds so suspect, but it's like, okay, I guess they're friends from school, and maybe she's like, fine, he's a bit of, it's fine.
Well, that's the thing, they all know each other, don't they?
They do.
They're all, it's not clearly not a big village, and all the kids know each other.
So she agrees, and they head off into the woods along a path. And one of them,
along, and at first, she's laughing with them when
they're having fun. Their
little japes and things.
But then eventually, one of them jumps down and ties a rope around her. And she says, you're hurting me. But they're like, oh no, we're just playing a game. Didn't they say we're playing a game? We're cannibals and we've caught you or something?
It's a new game we're going to play, and we're cannibals and we've caught you. And she's scared as hell, but she sort of thinks, okay, it's just a game, I'll go along with it.
So her screams get heard by Ralph, and he's riding or driving a carriage, isn't he? And he
it's a hay wagon.
And he dismounts and he goes looking for her because he's obviously concerned. So they take her to this big clearing where all of the kids appear.
It's to the ruined church, isn't it? Well, that's first. It's that's a really good shot when they bring her in and
they all just appear.
They literally just appear from behind trees and things, and they're all carrying boughs of flowers and branches full of flowers, and they're all sort of running around her, and it's sort of almost like a maid looking sort of scene, isn't it? They're all sort of running.
Yeah,
running
and you can tell that Kathy is like disturbed.
She's disturbed, but she's also.
Well, I think when Angel gives her the crown, she's kind of like a bit more like, okay, maybe it's fun, maybe people are being nice.
It's still just a game.
Yeah,
I think.
And of course Ralph is looking everywhere, calling for her and asking after her. I think he asks someone, and they're like, "Oh, there's always kids around here these days." I don't know.
I'm guessing he's some sort of tinker or something. Because he's it looks like he's gutting animals or something.
And
he says that he sees kids around here all the time now, lately, and he says that Angel has been around a lot.
Yes, yeah. So he continues his search, and then I think somewhere in this bit, I'm not sure where, we see Fallowfield get arrested by the Squire and his men. He's arrested for obviously what he did to Angel, or supposedly did to Angel, and also obviously now he's a suspect for Mark's murder as well.
Yeah,
he's like, Squire, you are making a mistake, buddy.
Yeah.
So Kathy's taken to the ruins of the old church,
and we also establish here as well as the procession is going through into the ruined church, that it's not just kids anymore. There are older people here as well.
Yeah, it's a weird shot all of a sudden, because it looks like it's all kids, and then suddenly there's like one shot, and you're like, oh, there are old people here as well.
Yeah,
this got
like
way more weird.
With a drum, and there's sort of some an old guy, and there's like, okay, this is getting really weird now. And then you start noticing that some of them have bandages.
Yeah.
And there's a girl with a missing hand. So that you all start sort of coming together now that what's happening. Yeah.
So she's being sort of brought in front of the creature that they're worshipping. And Kathy's pushed to the ground by Angel, and they pull up the back of her dress, and they see the mark, the furry patch on her
patch
back.
Of furred skin.
And then they start hitting her with flowers, with branches, right? And this shot's kind of awkward, to where I wasn't sure they were hitting her, because it kind of didn't look like they were doing it like they were hitting her. I wasn't sure if they were hitting her or if they were like.
They are. I think it's
just not very well shot.
It's I think it's supposed to be like a ritual they're doing.
Yeah.
There's it's very ritualistic gestures they're doing with the branches. So I'm guessing they're not sort of beating her exactly. They're just sort of
doing something as part of the ritual. And then not obviously, but then they start attacking Kathy. And
one of the guys with a head bandage basically starts removing his clothes and starts undoing his belt and stuff. And of course he then proceeds to attack.
Yes,
assault Angel.
As everyone looks on.
And as everybody looks on. And again, you get those close-ups of Angel, which are absolutely...
Because now she's got the eyebrows going as well, right?
Yeah, she's got those eyebrows going, yeah. And I'm never sure whether it's just supposed to be makeup or whether they're literally supposed to be new growth.
I think they're new, because I don't think she had it earlier.
No, but I didn't know whether it was like she painted them on.
Oh, I see. I always assumed it was growth.
New growth. Yeah.
That was my assumption. But anyway, this goes on for a little while until Angel decides that's enough. And grabs a pair of shears.
There's a lot of sniffing going on in this part as well. There's like sniffing of clothes. Angel sniffs her clothes when they take it off of Kathy, and she pulls out those cropping shears, and she sniffs them as she pulls them out.
Yeah, but of course she then stabs Kathy through the back. And of course Ralph hears the scream, so then he ends up running. But of course, by the time he gets there, they're all gone, and there's just the bloody body of Kathy.
Yeah.
Dead.
Taken So the
this is very timely, by the way, because Fallowfields are probably about to get killed.
Yeah, they've taken again. There's a lot happens in the woodshed in this movie.
Yeah. There's quite a bit. They've
taken it. They've taken him to the woodshed.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing they're going to string him up and beat a confession out of him.
Yeah. But they string him up, and he still denies it. And luckily, then we're lucky for him, I guess. Ralph,
definitely
lucky for him, not lucky for anyone else. Ralph comes in carrying Kathy's bloodied corpse, and Ralph says that Angel and her coven did this.
Yeah.
And the squire doesn't even apologize to the Reverend. No. He's like, let him go then. It's like, dude, you were about to either torture or kill this man.
Yeah, probably both.
Probably both. Like, you should apologize. He doesn't apologize. He's like, oh, release him then. Fine. And they're like, right, we'll go find the coven members. And I think Peter joins Ralph at this point, and he kind of looks sad.
Yeah, well, we see that he's got like a leather sleeve over his severed hand now, hasn't he? And he's becoming a little more proactive now because up until now he's been a complete fucking wuss.
And we then get what I think is the most awkward shot of the film. You should not, if you don't have an actor or stuntman who is capable of riding a horse fast, you should not speed up the footage. It looks goofy as all hell.
Well. It's the thing is that
because it's like he goes up and down way too fast. It's like it's so awkward.
But it's really weird because certain bits it
fine. Looks okay sometimes.
When they're riding, he's like sort of riding towards you.
That works.
It doesn't look quite so bad, but when it's
side on, it looks awful.
Side shots are really bad.
But yeah, he's heading to find the judge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he tells him how bad things are, and the judge is like, "Okay, maybe the time is now right."
Yeah.
And
he's got he sort of goes over to the sort of wall, and there's an elaborately covered something, which at this point you don't know what it is.
He's going to use undreamed of measures.
Yeah, that's what he says. He says, I will come, but I will use undreamed of measures. It's like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck does that mean?
What's under there? Meanwhile, poor Margaret is running from an angry mob because, of course, the bloody squire just went, go and kill witches, so they dutifully are. This angry mob grab Margaret, they catch her, and luckily for them, unluckily for her, she's right next to a pond. So in she goes, and I love this bit. They throw her in, and of course she just sinks. And Ralph comes up, and he's like, why did you throw her in? What have you done? And they're like, we done in a witch. And they're like so pleased with themselves, but then he's like, "What? Well, if she sinks, you've done a murder."
Yeah.
And then they're like, we're gonna leave." And they just walk away. It's like, okay, like they were so pleased with themselves, and they're like, "Well, if she floats, she's a witch." And he's like, "Well, if she drowns, you are murderers."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, didn't think about that."
Yeah, we were never here.
I guess they were so convinced she was going to float.
Yeah.
They should have waited a moment later because she does float. And Ralph, jumps in to get her.
Yeah.
And Ralph, comes back to the house and he tells Ellen, "Look, we rescued her from the mob. They were trying to, try her as a witch." And Ellen basically moves her towards the fire, and she gets Ralph to she puts her in Kathy's bed. She
says bring Kathy's bed into in so that so that she can put her in that. And Kathy's mum is the sweetest woman. She's just lost two of her children, and she's still the nicest, almost sanest person in the village.
Yeah. So he notices, of course, Ralph notices the devil's mark, or is it Ellen? One of them, anyway.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it is, but
they summon the doctor, But the doctor's like, this, they're like, cut it off. The doctor's like, that is beyond my ability. He's like, that's beyond my ability to it is too complicated a procedure for me to carry out. But they finally convince him, because he says, oh, it'll just regrow.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, operate. And of course they tie her down and they cut it off. And obviously she's crying while being held down. But
and to be fair to him, he does a stunning job.
He does a very good job.
It's
commendable really... considering the tools being used.
Yeah.
So he removes the skin and puts it in a bottle. And Ralph sensibly immediately says, burn it.
Burn it, yeah. But he's fascinated by it, isn't he?
Yeah, it's not a good fascination, though.
No, the doc is completely sort of enamored with this bit of skin in the jar.
Yeah. And of course, he's so enamored by it, he has not noticed something very important, which Ellen notices: there's no blood.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the mark removed. The girl says, hey, I'm Margaret, and I belong to the devil. And she wants to know why her legs hurt. So we later see Margaret kind of recovering, and Ralph's being sweet. He brings her some flowers, and
and Kathy's mum sort of says, "Oh, she's my daughter now." It's like, wow, whoa. Okay, that's a coping mechanism.
That's not healthy.
Yeah,
but fine. But yeah, so she pretty much doesn't she tell Ralph? She's like, I'm going to run away to Angel as soon as I can. Like,
yeah. She literally says, I'm going as soon as I can.
Yeah.
We should also mention that she's played by Michelle Latrice, who is famously Betty for Mothers Do Have 'Em.
Yeah. And he basically, Ralph says, look, Angel's not around anymore, and you don't serve Angel anymore. But she's like, I'm going anyway. And Ralph says, look, if you do, God is going to strike you down.
Yeah.
But she says, like, my Lord is stronger than your Lord.
Yeah. My God's bigger than your God.
Yeah, basically. He basically, like, she's like, take me to Angel and to my master. And he's like, no. And he's kind of disgusted and just leaves her.
Yeah.
So later the doctor approaches, doesn't it? Oh, sorry, yeah, the doctor approaches Ralph, asking about Margaret, and he basically says, look, she's a hopeless case. The devil's her master.
Yeah.
That's that. And doesn't the doctor mention that he's seen it? He's seen it hobbling around.
He thinks
he's seen the devil or the creature. He's like, I've seen it. So it's out.
I always will say that it's they call it Behemoth, don't they? Behemoth.
Yes. And then we hear Ellen crying that Margaret has run away.
Yeah.
And the search is on.
Yeah, the judge turns up with his an enormous bold mute dude.
Yeah.
And some very ferocious looking dogs.
Doesn't the doctor get panicky that they're going to come after him for removing the skin as well?
I think so, yeah.
I might be in trouble.
Yeah. Just doing what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, but the judge shows up, and then the doctor shows him the skin that's been removed. And the judge takes it as evidence. I guess he probably needs evidence because he's a judge and he's about to sanction the killing of quite a few kids.
I guess that's I suppose just a little something to justify
the mass murder of children in this village.
Yeah.
And a couple of old people who happen to be
and some old people.
But mostly children. So they've got some dogs trained to sniff out the devil. How do you train a dog to sniff out the devil? I don't know, but they have done it.
Well, I
guess they give them the scent of the skin, right?
He gives the skin for the dogs to sniff, and of course they're off.
Yeah.
And Margaret's running through the woods calling for Angel.
And she finds her, and Angel is like immediately like, "You've brought the dogs on me. You've
she's
done this to me."
she steps on a bear trap, doesn't she?
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yes. She steps on a bear trap, and that's when Angel turns up.
Yeah.
And she's like, "You've set the dogs on me," and she's like, "Could you please help me? My foot is in quite a lot of pain." But Angel basically leaves her.
Yeah, she says, "No, that's it." You know.
Well, of course, Angel's horrified because she realizes the skin's been removed.
It's gone.
Margaret confesses, like, the skin's gone.
Yeah.
And she basically says, "No, I'm going to leave you to the dogs. You can."
Yeah, you're no further use.
And the men approach with Ralph and the judge, and Ralph tries to free her from the trap, but then she slaps him, and she's like, "This is all your fault."
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, okay. And the judge asks for her name, and he's like, "Who set this trap?" And the judge basically decides to bring her along. And they tie her up in the barn, and they ask where Angel is.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Look, it was Angel that trapped you. Like, this is not,
Yeah.
She's not an angel.
She's
no angel.
She's not your friend."
But she kind of cryptically responds something like they meet wherever is hidden. I think they say something like that. But then they basically threaten to just throw her to the dogs, and she's like, "Oh, okay, we're meeting at the old church tonight." Yeah, fair enough. And the judge is like, "Okay, well, now we know where they're going to be." And she does continue saying, though, their master's going to be too strong for them to defeat.
Yeah.
Ralph, meanwhile, is doing a spot of gardening, and he accidentally cuts himself.
Yeah.
But when he peels back the sock, he is horrified to discover the devil's skin is now on him.
Mm-hmm.
And we get that great shot of the Raven.
Yeah.
Basically mocking him as he runs, which I love that shot.
It is a great shot.
Ralph obviously knocks for Helen, and he tells her not to look at his leg. She's like, "What's wrong with your leg?" He's like, "Don't look at it." Ellen is convinced that the judge is going to take care of everything. Like, don't worry about it. The judge has got this. He basically says that they may be coming for him, and basically says, "Look, please, are we alone here?" And she says that obviously Peter went to the village, and he does. Finally, he reveals that he got the skin from Kathy, didn't he? He's like, "I got it from Kathy," and he then heads upstairs. So presumably, I always took that to mean that him and Kathy had sex, and that's where he got it from. But I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
Is that not that's what I assumed was being insinuated there? Because they were kind of, sweet on each other earlier, and I kind of was like, maybe that's what he thinks happened.
I got the impression that Kathy was pure. I don't think she was.
Maybe you may be right. Yeah.
I think she was. She was. Yeah. I don't think so. I think she was too pure for that. I don't think he meant it that way. I don't think.
Maybe. Yeah. So the squires, basically apprising the villagers of the situation when the judge approaches in his carriage, and he says that I only want people that are gonna fight.
Yeah.
Like if you're coming, we're doing some murders. That's he's like, I only want people that are gonna go through with this. And yeah, of course, then we get that great shot of Ralph looking out the attic, and you see with the villagers with all the torches.
The torches going by, yeah.
And we just hear this, it's growing louder and louder, and
yeah, like a drumming, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, and I think the drumming. I think he hears the drumming, and because he's like he thinks that the devil's coming for him, basically.
Which pretty much is.
Yeah, he's not wrong. But yes, then the mob arrive at the church site. Ceremony's ongoing. There's a big fire. Angel is stood in front of Ralph, who has basically been brought there to give his flesh. And the coven kind of start dancing around and marching around.
And there's that woman removes her robes and
starts dancing in front of Ralph.
She hands him the shears, doesn't she?
Yes, yeah. And Ralph starts going into a kind of trancey thing himself.
He's in with it, isn't he? It's taken over his mind. He's almost he's almost euphoric with he starts smiling while they're dancing around.
And again, Angel's just watching. She's
and you also get a shot here. So the creature speaks a number of times. I have no idea what the fucking creature says.
That's because he's wearing a fucking Smithy's mask. Some fucking $5.99 joke shop mask. It's literally the only thing in this movie that is ropey as all hell.
It is that as we were I think we were discussing just before we started.
We should stop having conversations before we do this show, because I forget what we've discussed off air and on air. It gets confusing.
It is the worst thing of the movie is the creatures, the mask and the creature.
Maybe if they lit it better, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they probably would have been better off if they didn't show it at all.
Well, I think you said might have been before the show that maybe if they just showed the shadow, and I think that would have been fine. Yeah,
just the shadow, within the hood would have been enough.
Because I actually think
maybe just the suggestion of glowing eyes or something would have been.
Yeah, because I actually think this film really holds up really well. Apart from this is the one effect. This oh boy, that looks.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't deserve the bloody 6.4 it fucking got on IMDb.
No, I can't believe that. I love this movie.
And there's a shot here which is severely cut down, which you only get like a hint of it because it's cut out, and there's a slight shot of the creature puts his hand on Angel and he brings her towards his groin. So there is a shot. Apparently they filmed Angel filleting him.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, but they basically cut it out. But there's just the beginning of that. You see the creature put its hand on Angel, and she goes towards his groin, and it cuts. So you don't see anything.
I didn't even notice that, so it must have cut pretty quick.
Yeah, it does. It cuts really quickly.
So we see the judge and the men arriving, and they hide their torches as they watch.
Mm-hmm.
And then the judge is like, "Bring my giant crucifix scepter thing."
Yeah, he uncovers it's a Zweihander, isn't it? It's a fucking great big two-handed sword.
Yeah.
In a very cross-like, almost banner. He raises it almost banner-like, doesn't he?
Yes, yeah. And then in a moment of madness, or I guess to protect her master, Angel sees it and she kind of screams and just runs at him and gets stabbed.
Completely impaled.
Yeah, it was not her best plan.
No.
It was not the best idea. Then the judge basically moves towards the coven, and
I will say he does not handle that sword terribly well.
No. But to be fair, he's a judge.
Yeah.
He's gone away for a couple of weeks or whatever.
I'm guessing at some point he was a soldier as well.
True.
So the fact that he has this sword, I would say that he probably was a soldier.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Presumably not a terribly good one. But yeah, so the coven now are scared. They start to cower and run away. Yeah. We see the fiend devil, behemoth, yeah. And the judge I love, the judge is fearless. He's not scared of this devil at all, and he just basically heads towards the devil with his sword, and basically backs him into the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously bursts into flames and collapses. And at that exact moment, Ralph notices the skin is gone from his foot. And they all just watch as the demon burns. And Ralph has been saved for another day.
And it's a really nice shot. That's a nice shot as well. That you get through it literally ends with the camera looking through the flames into the judge's face.
Yeah, it's an awesome shot. Yeah, it's really good.
It's a great ending shot.
Yeah. And that was The Blood on Satan's Claw, a wonderful film, criminally underrated on IMDb, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just going to throw out there.
So the original ending was he gets the militia, the judge gets the militia, and they literally kill the whole village.
Oh, wow.
They completely...
that is much more like Hopkins. That's the kind of thing Hopkins would do.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have made it much more of a spiritual successor to Hopkins, actually.
And basically they thought, that's a bit too bleak. Maybe we want to give it some hope.
Sure.
And I actually think, in this case, I think, okay, it was one of those cases where I'm happier for this ending.
Yeah, I'm actually very happy with this ending. The only thing I don't like is the creature.
Yeah.
That aside, I actually think that the scene is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And works really well. I actually think this film is tremendous. I think some of the cinematography and framing, some of the shots are framed so wonderfully.
It's beautifully directed. The performances are wonderful, and
they are.
The performance of Linda Hayden, she is amazing. I can't remember whether this is her first movie, but
she's pretty young. I'm assuming it's 17. One of her first movies.
Yeah, she was 17, and she completely outacts people older than herself.
She is very good,
creepy, and just really.
And when she switches to the innocent girl who was ravaged by the evil, the evil priest.
She was in Taste the Blood of Dracula the year before.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so this is her 4th appearance by the looks of it.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, wonderful performance. I think all of the performances are pretty strong in this movie.
Are great. Yeah, they're really,
really, really good.
And originally it was supposed to be an anthology.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was going to be a Victorian anthology.
Oh, that would have been cool. I mean, I'm happy with what we got, but
it was going to be three stories. But then they said, one of the company guy said, Victorian's a bit, played out, and that's Hammer's thing. They wanted.
He's not wrong about it being Hammer's thing.
And they'd already done, like I said, the Witchfinder General, and they thought, well, maybe if we set it a little bit further back, around, after Witchfinder, but before Victorian, it'll be, it. And I think there's not many sort of movies that are around that sort of sit from Civil War up to Georgian times. You don't get that many horror movies set around those, and most of them that you do get tend to be folk horror. They tend to have that sort of folk horror thing. And I did see this list of what makes a folk horror, and it was 1 is rural location,
right.
2 is isolated groups,
right.
3 is screwed morals or beliefs, and 4 is violent supernatural happenings. And I think by that
definition is awful.
Well, it kind of is the what all those.
I mean, that encompasses all of folk horror, I think, for the most part, but it also encompasses a hell of a lot more.
It does, but I mean,
could you then call like The Thing a fucking folk horror movie?
Almost,
because it kind of ticks most of those boxes. I guess it does. It certainly does encompass all of folk horror, I think, for the most part, give or take.
And I think what they call the holy trinity of folk horror is Witchfinder General, this, and of course the Wicker Man.
Yes, I'd agree with that. I think in terms of the certainly the best classic folk horror, obviously the Wicker Man, in my opinion, is one of the best films ever made, ever. But
and the thing that was also talking about on this list was they were saying how it fits with what the Americans call exploitation.
Right.
So theoretically, things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre are folk horror.
Well, I mean, by that definition, it fits, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
it certainly fits that more than it would slasher.
Yes. Oh, certainly the first one. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not including the bloody the sequels.
I still have a real soft spot for the second one.
The second one is its own thing.
It's fun. It's just fun.
It's ridiculous.
Well, they know they're just doing a parody.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good. But yeah. Well, anyway, highly recommend if you have never checked it out. The Blood on Satan's Claw. Fantastic name for a fantastic film.
Yeah. And one thing I did forget to say is actually as well, the director.
Yeah.
Piers Haggard. He's the grandson of H. Rider Haggard, who wrote King Solomon's Mines and She.
Oh,
just
cool.
Not really relevant. I just think
it's cool though.
Yeah, I just thought it was really nice, really cool there. That I guess keeping in the stories in the family tradition, and his daughter's an actress as well.
Oh really? Oh cool.
Yeah, I can't remember what her name is now, but yeah, I've seen her in a number of things. She's a really good actress.
But in any case, we will be back next week with our usual review fare. Until then, stay safe, and we will catch you next time.